Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. For today's topic, I will be showing you how we can allocate more disk space on running Linux machine. So knowing how to do this, right, to allocate more disk space on a running Linux machine is an important skill, especially when it comes to production server, when you're doing when you're administering, Linux production servers professionally. So this is very important. So there are two steps when allocating more space on running machines. One, physical partition space allocation. Two, file system reclamation. And what you see here is a test virtual machine that I have provisioned on Proxmox, and I have a shell session opened on the right. Just wanted to show you that. So let's get into the first step of physical partition space allocation. So we can do this. We can check if the physical partition where your Linux OS is on has all the space allocated to it by running this command, right? lsvok. So what this shows you is this is basically there is a one physical disk, but in this case, it will be considered virtual because it's a virtual machine, but this virtual machine has a virtual disk, one disk attached to it with 3 partitions in this case. So that's what the output is saying. Now let's run df-h. What this command outputs and shows you is the file system partitions, logical partition within this SDA3 in this case. So this is how we can correlate it here. Dev SDA3 and SDA3. So this is where the correlation of partition happens on the file system itself. So right now I have about like 32 gig storage, virtual hard drive, and on that part there is a partition of SDA3 that is allocated as 31 gig of storage space, and now it's almost used up like 82% of the storage. So this is why we need to do this in a way to make sure that there are no the machine does not run out of persistent storage space. So we will have to allocate more disk space from the hypervisor to the machine. So we need to allocate more virtual hard drive space. So let's get to the virtual hard drive allocation. So this is the machine that is running. I need to come into hardware, get to the hard disk, and from here, let me just put this in full. From here, we can see that the size itself of the virtual hard disk is 32 gig. Now we need to allocate more space. We can come here in disk action, resize, and let's say I want to allocate the disk space to 42 gig. In this case, we need to put in size increment of 10, and that will run, and we can actually see that this should be updated to 42 gig on the hypervisor Proxmox. So now that that's done, we can get back to the shell session and we can check the allocation of the disk space. We can see that this is 42 gig already, but the partition itself is still only consuming about 32 gig. So there's about a difference of 10 gig we need to allocate, right? So to do that, we will need to use the parted command to allocate more disk space given from the hypervisor using the command. So we first need to do that by doing parted on dev sda. Oops, sorry. So I need to be a super user for that. Sudo so now we are administering the dev SDA, which is the virtual hard drive itself. And what we need to do is we need to run resize hot 3, and we will have to give it like fix. The partition number will be 3 because we are repartitioning the SDA3 component. So we give it 3. This is being used. Yes, we want to continue. So now what happens here is end 34.4 gig. If we want to allocate all of the space that we have over, right? So in here, there's 42 gig. We want to allocate all the disk space, let's say like 10 gig. We don't need to put like 10 in here. We can just put in -0, and that will allocate all of the disk space that Hypervisor has allocated to the machine, to the virtual hard drive. So that concludes the... So afterwards, we can just quit this parted shell, and we can do lsblk again, and we can see that our partition 3 has been allocated all the remaining disk space of 10 gig on it. That concludes the physical partition space allocation process. Now, the second step is the file system reclamation of the Linux file system. So if we do df-h, right, even though we have given the partition 3 10 gig of storage, we can see here on the file system that it is still only using 32 gig. So this step is where I'm going to show you how we can resize the file system of Linux. We can either use, resize to fs, or we can use xfs grow fs. So these two commands, we can use those. But in my case, I'm going to use resize to fs. Again, this particular command helps you grow the Linux file system since the root file system is on partition 3, right? So we need to run using sudo resize to fs dev sda3, which is the partition that the root file system is on, as we can see here. And we can also find out here. We just need to do that. And that should give us all the physical disk space allocated. So we can see that the size now is 42 gig now, and it's only using like 62% of the storage. And previously, if we compare that to here, this is 82% and 32 gig. That is it. This is a short guide that I wanted to go through. I hope you found this guide useful. Please share your own experiences or tips in the comment section below. If you learned something new today, give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more content in the future.